Howdy y'all, Wyrm here. So this is going to be a very quick discussion video from me regarding an interesting topic I came across, and it was also a stream a few days ago on Mogtalk, specifically about the world first scene between Final Fantasy XIV compared to World of Warcraft. Now I've actually watched the entire stream and it was actually really interesting. It was nice to see a full actual explanation of these things from verified world first people from both Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. Now this entire stream was actually broken down in the FFXIV discussion Reddit, and it was actually broken into a number of bullet points by Blackmore Knight. Huge props to this guy, he did an absolutely amazing job doing this write-up. So I mainly just wanted to go through these bullet points with you all, mainly because there's some very interesting stuff in there. Most of the stuff I didn't even have a clue about, so let's go through it together. So in the Mogtalk was Max from Limit, GM of one of the world top 2 WoW guilds, Leia Bell, former world first level raider from 14, and Safia Prion, currently world first level raider in 14. So firstly, both Max and the 14 raiders discussed the difficulties of finding raiders at a world first level, and that part of it seems to be fairly similar between games. There's a lot of soft skills like strategy, dealing with pressure, social ability, and so on that marks somebody more fit for a world first than others. Now this is a very good point. When you're performing at world first is a completely different tier. You think it's hardcore, it's well above hardcore, it's the top level of play. These players are a completely different breed from your standard raider. I mean, we raid a few hours a night, these people can go easily 20 to 24 hours constantly. These people are absolute machines when it comes to raiding. Given that, recruitment at the top is much more of a word of mouth thing. They only take on players that our current players give the thumbs up for. WoW is more cutthroat in this than 14, where DPS players in particular at the world first level are pretty much constantly on trial with a recruit to replace policy, compared to 14. According to Sifa, no world first team in 14 has that and is not that cutthroat yet. So that's something very interesting. I didn't actually think of it that way. So if you're a DPS in WoW, you're literally always a trial. If your performance dips even slightly or you start messing up, you could easily just find yourself replaced. And it looks like, according to them anyway, 14 doesn't have this sort of cutthroat scene, but I can imagine something similar. If you start messing up mechanics or holding the group back, you could easily just find yourself replaced. Self-reflection and the capacity to always think about what you could have done better first is one of the most important traits in a raider in both games. That's very true. Like at any raiding scene, in any sort of hardcore level, mid-core, soft-core, casual, whatever, you always have to have that mindset. It's such an important part of raiding. Meanwhile, log whoring is something you kind of trans out of by the time you get to that level, with people not really caring about the logs at that point, and it's assumed people are playing at their best of their ability already. Now that's actually something I didn't think about. I would have thought they would have actually considered our logs to be important. I would have thought that was a resume. But it turns out these people just kind of transcend their logs, so they actually go 99% or 100 all the time. These are the creme de la creme, the 1% of the 1% of the raiders of 14. So these people don't need to prove their logs. It's all a word of mouth thing, as I've already just said. They'll know if you're a top tier player or not. The competitive drive in WoW is on a different level than for 14 for now, from what I could tell. Case in point, ACT and add-ons came up, and Sifa and Leia emphasised that A, it's always been broken for the day at best, and B, it's in the grey zone. Now what they mean by that is ACT needs to be maintained patch to patch, and B, it's in a grey zone because the app is frowned upon by the developers. I mean, it's just the fact that so many people use it. They can't really do anything about it, but they don't want people using it. They've already stated this. Now this is something that had me very interested. For those not in the know, the entire backbone of ACT is a closed source parser written by a guy in A Realm Reborn that upkeeps it while not playing the game anymore. It updates based on his real life availability in the patch window, which is why Verse took a week for it to be fixed. There is nothing but community inertia keeping somebody from making an open sourced alternative. The methods to make 14 stuff work on patch are pretty well known and documented now, so in theory this is something a world first team could throw money at to fix. Now that's something I completely forgot. I mean, ACT has been around since A Realm Reborn, and one guy maintained it, and he doesn't even play the game anymore. So all the way to this point, this guy who doesn't play the game anymore is maintaining this tool in his spare time. Now, I doubt he's getting any money for it, but ACT is actually hosted on a website, so I assume there's some sort of ad revenue for all the players that go through. In WoW, these tools are maintained by teams of players with money backing them. In 14, we have one guy. And this one person is maintaining a tool that millions of Final Fantasy XIV players use. That is unfreaking believable. But it made me think about something as well, mainly this line here. There is nothing but community inertia keeping somebody from making an open sourced alternative. That's very true. I mean, nobody, as far as I'm aware, I think people tried in Heavensward to make an alternative to ACT, but it didn't take off. I can't even remember its name anymore. But the point is, there's only one person maintaining ACT. What if he stopped? And then what would happen? If the tool's not being maintained, people would have no choice. Players would come together and make an alternative to it. But the point is, this one guy who's maintaining ACT is the only thing that keeps it going, and people take it for granted. I doubt most people even know that it's only one guy behind this. People probably think there's probably a team and money behind this. There's not. It's a guy in his spare time and he doesn't even play the game anymore. From my personal standpoint, I mean, props to the guy for doing it all these years, but maybe it's time to just stop and let the community take over. The reason for this is pretty much money. There's actual money in the WoW race. A lot of money.
Cash is king. Cash is king.
Max said that the cost of putting on a world first production at complexity was the hundreds of thousands of dollars. 14 scene is volunteer and grassroots because there's no money in it yet. Now I want you to think about this for a second, and I'm going to bring this thing up, it's very important. I've been playing World of Warcraft since mid-vanilla. By the time we were in Burning Crusade, there was already world first groups and world first organizations all shooting for the world first ladder. The scene was grassroots at best, but there was money in it. Like, there wasn't much money, but there was money, and then there started being sponsorship, there started being more teams, and suddenly an entire scene just sprang up around it, literally an esport. 14 doesn't have that. 14 has a few teams, and I want to ask you this question now, and leave a comment if you just know right away. So can you name for me right now, what was the world first team or a world first player who killed Oracle of Darkness first? Let me know in the comments if you actually know that right off, or if you had to Google it. I'd say most people, including myself, I'd have to Google it. I don't know any of these people. I've been playing the game since the beginning. I don't know any of these world first people. It's not advertised, there's no websites. In WoW, you have all these websites that actually maintain these world first records. You have it in the news of gaming websites. 14 doesn't get that exposure. If you get a world first kill, maybe it'll probably appear in MMORPG.com in a small article. In WoW, it's literally everywhere. People will say, these people got mythic world first, and it's all over the news. Our scene is barely grassroots. They say it's grassroots. I don't even think it's grassroots. I think it's amateur volunteer at best. It's borderline into grassroots. Max mentioned that it could be easily changed if 14 keeps riding on the high it's on, but it would take pretty much a unanimous agreement from all world first contenders to stream progression, even if it's at a competitive disadvantage. Now this goes back to World of Warcraft versus WoW. In WoW, for a world first, you can stream it easily enough. You're not going to give away the game too much to your competitors who are shooting for world first if you're streaming it. In 14 you will. If you start giving away your tactics in a stream, or they see what you're doing, and your competitors who are right behind you will go, oh, they're doing the fight this way, or they're moving the boss here and then going over there, and that's what they're doing with the debuff. Let's do that. You're giving the game away. 14 has such a harder time with streaming content like this, because it's all scripted. The scene won't grow and money won't enter it until actual world first contenders are streaming, not just world third. Now, this goes back to the point, there's no money in our scene. So, you can't expect it to grow without money. There's no money, there's no sponsorships, there's no teams, there's no dedicated sources to actually maintaining the records, aside from a couple of websites, a couple of discords, and maybe a Reddit thread here or there. That's pretty much what our scene is. Data mining in 14 and WoW for a competitive advantage are both real, and in 14's case it's more than just icons and animations, as the common belief goes. But it's less of an advantage in WoW due to Wowhead existing and publicising everything. So that's a very good point. Wowhead exists for World of Warcraft, where they publicise all of the data mine stuff right away. In 14, as they're about to say, world level data mining in 14 is in-house and privately done, which Max thought was neat due to giving the teams a competitive advantage, but Layla expressed severe distaste for it as a necessity. Again, a cultural and competitive drive difference. This routes back to the grey area thing. Data mining is not allowed. They don't like you data mining these patches. At least I don't think so. But I imagine if they don't like ACT, they frown upon you picking a patch apart and data mining it early. But data mining gives you an advantage in terms of, for example, if you see a fight has no ads, you could pick your jobs accordingly. Maybe if it has ads, you'd pick your job accordingly again, saving yourself a couple of minutes of having to switch jobs around. But it's a lot more involved than that, and the most we see of data mining is when it leaks onto Reddit, for example. The rest of the time, these groups are actually data mining themselves privately and don't release the results just to try and keep that competitive edge. And that's pretty much everything from this discussion. It was such a beautifully broke down document, I highly recommend you read it, and I've left a link for it in the description. Now, just before I end this video, I quickly wanted to outline my personal opinion on WoW players coming over to 14 and what it means for us. Personally, I couldn't be happier for WoW players to be coming over. I mean, Blizzard has done them wrong for so long, and it's refreshing to see all these new players come over and have such a great time. I've been playing with all the sprouts that have been coming over from World of Warcraft. They're all having an amazing time, but this highlights something very important. We're in the spotlight right now, so players are coming over not only from World of Warcraft, but all over the place. And this is why. We're not stealing players, it's just players are coming over because they're sick of World of Warcraft, they're sick of what Blizzard is doing. All the articles, everything that's happening, the lawsuits, etc. The CEO taking a giant bonus and fecking off to some bloody beach somewhere. All of that crap is just coming around to bite them in the ass. The players are fed up. They're going somewhere where they'll actually be treated with some respect. But as you can see here, it's literally all over the place. esports.com, player auctions, even Windows Central is actually picking up on the story. But essentially this is a bubble. We're just in the spotlight right now. So at the beginning of this video you saw me playing Pokemon Go, right? Pokemon Go had this exact same thing happen. When Pokemon Go first came out, it went viral. Everybody and their grandmother was playing. But after a while the player base actually went down and then it streamlined to a more natural sort of player number. In 14 we're having this problem at the moment, so many players are coming in, the servers are having issues, but they've already addressed it as much as they can and they've made the right decisions, as we've already said in my last video, and they're going to make proper changes in Endwalker with new servers and a new data center. But the fact that this is happening now, it couldn't have happened at a better time. We're so close to Endwalker. These players are coming over now, they're leveling up, they're getting familiar with the game. By the time Endwalker comes around, these guys are going to be seasoned players ready to go to take on the raiding scene. And personally what I think that means is we're going to have a much more competitive raiding scene, and maybe then our grassroots scene will start to gain some traction. And personally I'm hoping for some PvP development as well, because our PvP scene sucks. Anyway, that's it from me guys. This was only a very quick rundown. I'm hoping it's not going to run out too long. I did speak for a long time, but either way, let me know how you feel in the comments about this whole thing, and let me know what you think is going to happen in the future towards Endwalker. Thanks all, and as always, have a good one.